Two prime ministers have come and gone in just 2 months, and Libya appears to be sliding towards further political uncertainty. So where's the country heading, and what could be done to put it on a more favourable course? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to Inside Story. I'm Mike Hanna. Libya's interim prime minister has announced he will step down one day after he and his family were attacked by armed men. Abdullah Al-Thinni says he's leaving in the interests of the nation and doesn't want to be responsible for further violence. He's the second Libyan prime minister to leave office in just 2 months. The post-revolutionary government has been racked by division and is struggling to rein in militia groups. Andrew Simmons has more from Tripoli.
Abdullah Al-Thinni is quite categorical about why he won't carry on in his post, and it's because his family came under attack on Saturday. There were gunshots discharged. He said that the attackers were obviously cowards, but that if lives were at stake, particularly his own family's lives, then he could not continue in office. He said he would stay in place with the rest of the government until the General National Congress could choose another prime minister. Now, that is a massive task because they have an array of candidates, around 17 is the last count, and the vying, all the differences within the GNC are colossal. With that large kaleidoscope of political opinion, groupings, and mixed in with it, the armed groups that back certain figures or groupings, and it is really quite a nasty, explosive cocktail, and the public are getting more and more frustrated by this situation in government where there isn't a clear leadership, there is a weakness in government. And if you turn the clock back to last Tuesday, which is when the Prime Minister said to the GNC that he wanted some clarity, he wanted a mandate for the government, and the response was, well, you have a week to form a new government. There was some hope that perhaps this rather unusual situation could move towards some stability because the Prime Minister was getting some sort of backing from the GNC, but that is not the case. It's a worse situation now, and the GNC does have to make a decision quickly if it's to restore any confidence from a very confused and frightened Libyan public.
Well, joining to discuss the situation in Libya are our guests. In London, Anas El Gomati, he's the director of the Tripoli-based Sadeq Institute. It's Libya's first think tank. Also in London, Magdulien Abaida, she's a Libyan political activist. And joining us on Skype from Benghazi is Faraj Najem, a Libyan historian. Mr. Najem is author of Tribes, Islam and State in Libya. Welcome to you all. Let's begin with Magdulien Abaida. 2 prime ministers in 2 months. Where is the next prime minister going to come from?
About the resignation of the prime minister, I think the second prime minister basically is, they don't, in my point of view, they don't really have any legitimacy to be a prime minister because for the GNC they are already expired on the 7th of February. So the chaos in Libya now, anybody will come, they will go, because first of all they don't have legitimacy and the people are really angry and they will go out in the street all the time against them and they want them out of power because they believe that they lost the legitimacy on the 7th of February. And so this is why this prime minister resigned, even though his resignation is not legal because his position wasn't legal at the first place.
Well, Faraj Najem, a gloomy point of view there, it does appear. This issue of legitimacy, underlying reaction to the resignation of yet another prime minister, is it not?
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, there is a serious problem here. There is a legitimacy question. I mean, for instance, here in Benghazi, lots of people do not think that nor the JNC, nor the Prime Minister-elect or designate both have any legitimacy. As Ms. Abaida rightly pointed out, these people, they were supposed to leave on the 7th of February. However, they haven't. But what what annoys people is the trading between the two political parties who have dominated the political scene recently, but also have spoiled the political taste, if you like. That's what annoys people. So, I think what Mr. Al-Thinni did yesterday by handing in his resignation, he did the honorable thing.
Well, Anas El Gomati, your view on this, do you think this question of illegitimacy is absolutely seminal to the discussion?
I think it's a central component, but I think more so if you look at the kind of the first quarter and the last quarter, actually, well, the first quarter of 2014, but the last quarter of 2013, there seems to be emerging something more detrimental and something more toxic in the environment, which is that we're all using this term, the people. And I think that's kind of dangerous if we look at the recent developments in Egypt in the last 7 or 8 months, but also if we try to look at Libya trying to become a stable environment for a government to flourish, then I think we keep talking about legitimacy and we keep saying that the people no longer find government legitimate. Well, who are the people? I think that's the first question that we have to ask ourselves. The second question is, where are we going to find a way in which to find a stable form where we can get some consensus building amongst political actors that we can say is some form of legitimacy? Because we do know that the GNC has expired, but what is the alternative? Political vacuum, perhaps? Looking at the way in which Libya is trying to develop a security monopoly or a monopoly on legitimate use of violence from its government. I don't think that's a very healthy environment to try to talk about legitimacy and illegitimacy. I think those that are calling for the GNC to leave, maybe small numbers, maybe big numbers that we don't know yet, the only way to establish that is through the ballot box. And I think that's probably the best way to find an answer of who is legitimate and who is illegitimate.
Well, Magdulien Abaida, your view on that, the question of who are the people, who is the people? How do you find out where the legitimate voice of Libya lies?
Well, the people are those who went out on the Friday in 17th of February, out in the streets in Benghazi, in Tripoli, in Derna, and Tobruk, everywhere in Libya. Thousands of people went out. They are the Libyan people. These are the people I'm talking about. They don't find the GNC are legal. And not only that, it's according to law, they are not legal anyway, because when they asked for power, they went through elections. People voted for them. So you cannot stay in power when your period of time that you were elected for, it's finished already, and you just continue, staying in power. You have to ask people. You have to do another election if you want to continue being in power. At the same time, what's happening in Libya now, it will continue the same, because first of all, even if they stayed in power, we are not here speaking about other alternatives. Of course, there are other alternatives if we want to see the other alternative, but we don't want to see it because we keep saying that we don't have other alternative. And what we are doing is that we say we don't have a institute, we don't have army, we don't have this, and we don't have that. Basically, we do have. But what we are saying is that those people used to be pro-Gaddafis, and that's why they are out of our consideration. And we are not going to be in the correct line as long as we consider everybody who's working in the previous regime is pro-Gaddafi, because there was only one Libya, and this Libya was controlled by Gaddafi, and everybody was working that time with Gaddafi. It's not with Gaddafi, it was with Libya, because this is the only Libya we knew. There wasn't another Libya. But there are many alternatives if we want to create alternatives.
Well, we will start going into those alternatives, but Faraj Najem, I want to take to you that point that's been made about finding some form of authentic voice. It would appear that the ballot box, once again, could be the only vehicle for that.
Well, that's what we are trying to go to, and we have rallied the Congress. We have tried to pressurize them. We came out in demonstrations. Most GNOs have told the Congress that the 7th of February was the last of their date. And by the way, I belong to one of these GNOs, that's NAG, National Action Group, Majmu'at al-Amal al-Watani. And we submitted even a proposal back in September and warning them of February the 7th, the day that their mandate expires, and we begged them to find something else and to move on. Now, however, they've been dragging their feet. They've told us that they're going to go to new elections, and they have asked the the election commission to do that, but they have not set a date. And now they're still meddling, they're still messing about, and they're not taking the country seriously. And this lot that we have, the majority of them in the Congress, we have realized and we have made up our minds that I don't think they are equipped or qualified to create the state that we aspire for. And that's why we wanted to vote in new people, and that's what we're going to do. And hopefully to have a caretaker government that will see us to a permanent status. But the current political leadership has to go, I'm afraid,
well,
because we have lost touch.
Well, Anas El Gomati, I mean, to pick up on that, here we have the argument that the issue is leadership, a fundamental root cause of the ongoing problems faced by Libya lies in ineffective or incompetent leadership. Your view?
I would say that's pretty accurate. I think that you can look at the domestic leadership and level some responsibility there, but I also say the international community bears its own role and has its own responsibility in the current chaos. And I think that's purely because Libya's challenges go above and beyond just domestic concerns. There is a security challenge which threatens the region at large, whether you're talking about Africa, Middle East and North Africa, or whether you're talking about Europe as well and southern Mediterranean neighbourhood. And so I suppose there is much to do and much to discuss amongst the international community. But however, when we're talking about leadership, when we're talking about elections, I think talking about representation is really the kind of question, or really the kind of answers you'll get from an election. I think the real cause and the real problem today is that just because you decapitate the head of the GNC or decapitate the head of the executive shouldn't mean that the country comes to a standstill and is crippled and that basic services cannot be provided. And I think that is the main cause of problems across the country. There are vast spaces or vast ungoverned spaces in the country, whether we're looking at Sirte, Gaddafi's hometown, or whether we're looking at Derna in the far east of the country. These spaces are ungoverned, and it goes beyond representation there. Local services are not being provided effectively, and therefore, whilst you find that there are these small vacuums at which nature loves, you always find an equal or even a more powerful force coming in there. And these are alternative militias that are now providing serious challenges, more than the challenge to kidnapping the Prime Minister or even trying to threaten the current Prime Minister who resigned. These are doctrinal challenges, challenges of an ideological nature, whereby there's an excessive use of language and even alternative forms of government that have never been tried before. You're finding layman people that have only ever held guns before now talking about reading the Sharia and trying to implement Sharia in Sirte and in Derna. These are the kind of challenges which I think in the long term Libya could really suffer with, and I think the leadership today is more about representation. I think the GNC elections will be more about representation, but providing basic services, local services outside of the capital, outside of Benghazi, outside of Misrata is crucial towards keeping the country on a stable route. And the first question here is, how do we stabilize Libya?
Well, Magdulien Abaida, how do you think you stabilize Libya? At that particular question, there has to be some form of stability. There has to be somebody dealing with those service issues that we hear about in remote areas. How can that be done?
To answer this question, we have to go back to the point of the revolution. When this revolution started, we were divided to two parties. We are people who wanted to change and to throw Gaddafi out of power and to looking for a better Libya, and there are those other people who are Libyans as well, who fought for Gaddafi, and they kept fighting for 8 months. And so, and when the revolution which didn't really win till now, because the revolution is not just changing a regime, but now we are two parties. That's winner party and the loser party. So we have to discuss this issue. We still thinking that this revolution is started by the Libyan people. Yes, it is started by the Libyan people, but it have other Libyan people that are not part of this revolution. So before asking about the stability, we need to go back and answer this question and try to finalize the issue between the Libyans themselves and how do they come together united to fight for Libya and to throw out all these militias. Because as long as we are trying to go by ourselves and forgetting that there are other Libyans who are out of Libya or who are being being out of the country or being threatened in the country, and they cannot contribute, and they cannot even vote. They cannot be part of this election or this constitution. There won't be any stability. The stability starts to answer the question about those two parties, the winner and the loser party in this revolution, and to become together, united, and discuss together. And even the election should be together, but with all the Libyans, and not trying to be a stable country while you still have this hatred, this revenge, and even the neighbors are fighting in each other because this is Gaddafi and this is a revolutionary. It comes from these small problems.
Well, if I may go to Faraj Najem on that particular issue, the divisions, the basic divisions that we hear from Magdulien there, that lie between Libyans, is it possible to start broaching these divisions, to start bringing the people together to close those gaps that we have just explained?
Indeed, if I just may go back a bit to the point that Anas raised, decapitating the Congress, what we are asking for is the Congress to arrange elections and to hand over government or power peacefully to a newly elected body. We don't want to overthrow them and leave a vacuum. No, this is not the intention. The intention is to go to election and hand over to others. As for the problem of division amongst Libyans, now the divisions have multiplied. In the early days of the revolution was about who's pro the revolution and who's against the revolution and who's neutral. Now the problem is it's among revolutionaries themselves. Now they cannot agree on what to do with Libya and how to go forward with Libya. And I think there lies the problem. I didn't think the problem is with the followers of the old regime or Gaddafi loyalists. And I totally agree. They have to be accommodated in one way or another. Those who have committed crimes, obviously, they have to be sent to face justice. The rest, and they are the overwhelming majority, they have to be part and parcel of New Libya. New Libya cannot afford to exclude them at all. But how to go about this is the problem. Now, the government has started what they call national dialogue, but this was born dead because of the fact that it was sponsored by the government. It has to be spontaneous, it has to come from the grassroots, from the basis, and it has to go to go to the top. And I think there are signs now, people are talking, trying to accommodate each other. I think Libyans now, they're feeling each other's pulses, and they know that no one party can dominate the other, and therefore they have to come back to the senses and agree a strategy for the future.
Well, let's just pause at this particular point, because most of the countries in the Middle East where what was called the Arab Spring happened have yet to achieve the promises of their uprisings, including Libya. But the one country that may offer a template for a way forward, though, is Tunisia. And let's take a look at what went right there. Zine Ben Ali was deposed in a short period of time, with the military playing no active role. Not long after, free and fair elections were held and won by Ennahda, a party formed on religious grounds. It forged an alliance with two moderate secular parties, but fueled by political assassinations, Tunisia became again politically unstable. Ennahda's leadership, however, favouring stability, it said, opted for compromise and voluntarily stepped down, making way for a caretaker government until the next elections. And in January, Tunisia managed to do what no other post-revolutionary country in the Middle East has achieved. It approved a new constitution. Now, Anas El Gomati, there we do have an incident, an expression of compromise. There were, in the midst of the greatest difficulties, the willingness and, most importantly, the ability to compromise. Is this something that Libyans could learn from?
I think there are many things that they could learn from the Tunisian constitution. I think there are some problems with it. I think the main problem which Libya needs to try to overcome and jump that hurdle is its inability to go beyond security sector reform and some sort of meaningful reform in the security apparatus, whether it be the police or the army. And I think Libya really needs to kind of, the Libyan government and those constitutional drafters really need to look at this issue, because it's central towards everything that underpins all these local services, which is the monopoly on legitimate use of violence. And that's one of the reasons why we have so many militias that are always questioning the legitimacy of the government or its or the way in which it seems to try to assert itself in this higher position. There are many things that we could learn about, and consensus building is probably the best lesson to learn about from the Tunisians. I think they went differently to the Egyptians. I think, you know, the way in which now Egypt is trying to empower itself through a war on terror is definitely the best lesson to avoid. It's definitely the best thing the Tunisians have done. I think Libyans may try to go on a very similar route. I think Al-Thinni actually made a statement a couple of weeks ago in Khat, saying that he wanted to go down this similar route, a war on terror. And I think that kind of language, that kind of terminology is so toxic. It's creating such a populist environment where we have to say things like "we the people," which is a complete myth.
Well, Magdulien Abaida, if I may go to her on that particular point, that question of national dialogue. You are saying that Libyans must get together, they must narrow these divisions. Is there the space for national dialogue, do you believe, in Libya?
I believe, yes, there is a space for national dialogue, but it shouldn't happen between one party, because what happened, the government raised like national dialogue, but actually they didn't talk or they didn't have the dialogue with other side. They were just having this between themselves. And if you want to have a dialogue, you have to sit all together in one table and discuss it, but not just discuss it by yourself together and you just leave the other party. You have to speak to them. You have to find a way to arrive to a point where we can manage ourselves together and have a better Libya, because other people, they want to be in Libya, and they want to be in their country, and of course they love their country as we do love our country. So we shouldn't look at the point that they have different political point of view. It's their own business. It's normal. It's a healthy democratic. And this is what we fought for. We fought for democracy.
If I may go to Faraj Najem on that particular point, Magdulien, sorry, apologies for interrupting, but Faraj, that issue of national dialogue and what we're hearing there from Magdulien Abaida, there is among Libyans a desire for national dialogue. There may not be so among some of the politicians. How do you break this logjam? How do you get to what we said earlier, the authentic voice of the people speaking to each other?
Well, funnily enough, one of the prominent Libyan journalists, Fatih bin Isa, once wrote, he said, the biggest problem with Libyans that they don't have a serious problem or big problem. And this is a problem. I mean, for example, in Tunisia, there was a distinction, a clear difference between the so-called Islamists and the liberalists. In Libya, there isn't. However, the more of a serious problem, it's amongst the revolutionaries, the camp that has won the revolution, and they cannot agree how to go forward. And this is a serious problem. But seeing the Tunisian model, and I understand that Sheikh Rashid Al-Ghannouchi, the leader of Al-Nahda, is intervening, and I think he's facilitating a dialogue between the various factions, namely the extremists, the Islamic extremists and the rest, to come to terms and sit down and agree an agenda, agree a strategy forward. I think this is going to work, since the Egyptian option, I don't think will do Libya any good. So what happened in Tunisia does give us a hope that we can go forward. So Libyans, they need to agree how to go forward, and then just basically implement it. But I cannot. I'm on the ground here, and I am, involved in some of these dialogue workshops. We have not really found serious problems. I mean, for example, Libyans by and large, they agree in the implementation of Sharia. Libyans by and large, they wanted democracy. Libyans by and large, they wanted rule of law. Libyans by and large, they wanted to end the old age problem of centralism or centralizing authority in the capital. But how to go about this? This is the problem, and this is what
that is the fundamental question, if I may end it there, the need for national dialogue. Thank you to my guests, Anas El Gomati, Magdulien Abaida and Faraj Najem. And do please add your voice to this discussion. Your comments are welcome as always. Leave us your thoughts on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. From everyone here, I'm Hanna. Thanks for watching and goodbye for now.